Welcome to Diversity Conversations, where we engage in thought-provoking dialogue to identify leadership solutions to today's most challenging conflicts. Stream live each week, Saturday 9:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. Hosted by Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Strategist and CEOs Eric Ellis and Tommy Lewis. Join us and add your voice to this engaging diversity conversation.
Good morning, Greater Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky, the United States, and the world. My name is Eric Ellis, and I'm the president and CEO of Integrity Development Corporation. And I'm joined this morning by my good friend and brother,
Tommy Lewis, president and CEO of Make It Plain Consulting. Good morning, Eric.
Y'all see how famous Tommy looked, don't y'all?
Yeah. Hey.
And he sounds like Darth Vader. Oh, look at that. Oh, all he needs is to smoke his jacket in the pipe.
Yes, sir.
Oh, you look great, man. You are obviously not sitting here with me.
Yeah. Eric, great to be with you virtually. I am with a bunch of very, very close friends and very, very funny people here in Innisbrook Golf Club in Florida. And so they invited me to join them in their party. These guys are a hoot. And so we've been enjoying ourselves. We're going to hit the course in about 3 hours. It's a PGA course, something I've never played.
Right.
But these guys have played around the country and maybe even around the world. But I'm honored, Eric, to have been invited by these three good men who are not only funny, not only intelligent, but they are family folks. So their families are very diverse by way of ages, by way of relationships with their significant others. And we're just going to kind of bond, if you will, over the next few hours and this weekend. So I'm excited to be here, but right here with Diversity Conversations.
Now I'm going to tell you all something. You know, a lot of times we give you a lot of strategies that we've written down, but this is the strategy. I mean, yes. Tommy, that's what you got to do, man. I'm telling you, community, you have got to make sure that you are making space to enjoy life, to spend time with friends, make new friends, golf. Make sure that you're cleansing your mind and really just enjoying what God has put on earth for us to enjoy. Tommy, you deserve it. I'm so glad that you are there. And it almost doesn't even matter how you golf. It's just being out there, man. What's the weather like?
It is 75 degrees right now. It's going to get close to 83 today. Light breeze, beautiful environment. Eric, and you can see the light coming in a little bit from my left, but it's very different than we're accustomed to right now in this time of the year. It is absolutely beautiful.
Now, community, I must confess, I saw Tommy Lewis's bag sitting around last week, and something said, jump in one of them. But I didn't take the opportunity. Look what I missed out on. I was thinking about it because I've been losing weight. I was thinking about it, and I did not do it. And now he's out there 80-something degrees. I'm getting in the bag the next time. You probably won't be going back there, though. I'd probably be going to Buffalo or somewhere like that. Snowstorm. And now I'm trying to zip myself out the bag.
Right.
I took the wrong trip. Right. Hey, man. So I'm going to tell you, community, there's so much going on in Washington right now that has got our country on fire that Tommy and I are probably going to have to institute a segment called Government Watch. Right. So we really want to say, what are they doing? So we're going to name a couple of these pros and concerns that are happening on Capitol Hill. I'm going to start with a pro. Now, everybody is concerned about DOGE. Yeah. So DOGE stands for, I guess, the Department of Government Efficiency. That's the new thing that Elon Musk is coming in with the young boys, and they're trying to whip America into shape. Now, I know that there are people that can only see the downside. So I tip my hat to you all and say, hey, if that's your expertise, if that's your comfort zone, keep seeing nothing but the downside and being afraid. I get it, because there is a lot to be concerned about. But I would say to you that we have been out of shape for a long time.
Okay.
America, as it relates to government, has been just getting bigger and bigger. I remember seeing a cartoon movie where they was on a ship and they had ate themselves so big that they couldn't stand, and then the whole family was just rolling around. I don't know if you remember that. They're just rolling around, like this. And that's how we are as a country. Both parties have us rolling around, eating more food, spending more stuff, and never looking at, do we have to pay for that? It's just like going into a candy store, filling up your pockets. So I'm going to tell you now, one of the scary thoughts, I know people know for sure that Donald Trump is going to go down in history for a lot of stuff. But if he pulls this off, some of what he's going to go down in history for is really putting a business lens towards the government and the bloated government that exists. And let me go a step further. I'm going to give Donald Trump his roses right here, because we got a whole side of concern, and I got concerns. But the other thing, Tommy, is I'm starting to see Donald Trump in his wheelhouse now.
Yeah.
As the businessman. We heard about the businessman first term. We knew he had bankrupted 6 companies. So Donald, we almost were taking back that whole badge that you're a businessman. Yeah. But I'm telling you what he's doing right now with these tariffs. Remember, everybody flat out said tariffs is ridiculous. It's horrible. But he actually right now, at this moment, looks to be using them almost completely as a negotiating ploy. And he's really now working with Japan. I heard parts of his press conference with the president of Japan. The president of Japan was like, we're so excited about this opportunity to make $1 trillion investment in the United States. And we're going to do some things back and forth. And they're looking at opportunities for building stuff, creating stuff, doing stuff together, creating agreements. So, Tommy, from a pro side, the whipping us into shape, and some of that blindly, certainly you'll cut a lot of stuff. You're trying to get the fat, but you actually is cutting some muscle, skin, So they're going to do that, and then maybe they'll balance it. But I say part of that is what has been needed for a long time. The only thing I have left to say to Elon Musk is, why you cutting? Get rid of Congress. Yeah. Just don't cut them on out of there. We don't even need them. If we got Doge and we actually need some balance on Doge, somebody to watch Doge, But I'm saying, man, the Congress, every time we see them, all they're doing fussing, fighting, doing nothing. Yeah. So that's part of what people have liked about Trump, that like Trump. His ratings are still going down. But what are your thoughts about that, Tommy?
Yeah, I think that there's going to be some pain now, Eric, and I think that there's going to be some pain and suffering and change in the near future, if not distant future. 2 things. I think in the distant future, there's going to be some byproduct of today's actions. Oh. So if it is cutting the fat meat, if it is leaning the government, if it is really these attacks on DEI and other efforts to create more equality, equity, inclusivity, those things will happen. But as an athlete to athlete, and we have a lot of athletes that are in our community, we have a lot of business people in our community, we have a lot of people who are in families who grow and change and literally have growing pains, that there's always pain to get to the next level. Yeah. And because of that, Eric, number 2 is why I'm always at peace with what's going on. It hurts. There's some pain. There's some decisions that are made that I don't agree with. Right. There are also decisions that are made that I'm like, this is interesting.
This is interesting.
Like, to the point of, if there's a decision to eliminate all illegal discrimination, I'm for it.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah. I'm also for eliminating all discrimination, not just what we call illegal, but all discrimination. So I think that, Eric, what I'm seeing today will have repercussions later. Some may be great, some may be not so good.
Mm-hmm.
But we are, as a country, going to be different in the next 4, 8, 12 years.
Right. Another pro, I would say, is the we are all in the same pot theory. A lot of people didn't think they were in the pot. They watched as you and I were under DEI banner, we're in the pot, and it was boiling, people stirring us up in there. And there were people just looking at us saying, you know, remember when you were in school, you got in trouble and somebody was over there like,
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And then that pot came, then it came for you. And now you're stirring around in the pot. And I know that maybe as many as 5,000 FBI agents might find themselves in the pot with us. And I heard one of them say, I voted for Trump twice. And he's now considering retiring or resigning from the FBI because of the attacks, and so much is up in the air. But my pro, I'm going to go back to my pro, is that there are a lot of people that are finding themselves in the same place, and they're now beginning to see beyond partisanship to rightness, the pace of change, and the indiscriminate sort of blaming or stereotyping a whole group. See, it's easy to be on that bandwagon, Tommy, when they're stereotyping another group you don't like.
Mm-hmm.
When your group starts getting stereotyped and just broad brush painted as waste, the deep state, then that begins to hurt. But let's look at not the downside of it, Tommy, but the pro side of people recognizing that if I don't care about others, that they could come for me. You know, that poem that said they took so-and-so and they took so-and-so and I didn't worry, but then they came for me and there was nobody there left.
Yeah, Eric, I think there are some pros and cons as we're talking about right now. We're talking about kind of reshaping and rebranding DEI specifically.
Yes.
Again, we're making a connection to government and things like that, but DEI is more than just government. We know that. And so I think that there's an opportunity for all of us to do an inventory.
Mm-hmm.
An inventory on our why. Why do we do what we do in our workplace?
Yep.
Why do we work? And some of us work for dollar bills. Some of us work to provide a service or create a product. Some of us live to stay alive. Mm-hmm. Some of us live to be significant, right? These are our whys. So the pros that I'm seeing right now with the rebranding DEI, attacking DEI, criticizing DEI, I actually believe it's a good thing, Eric.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Here's why I think it's a good thing. I think that from a corporate perspective, I believe that over the last 5, maybe even 10 years, there's been a tremendous amount of initiatives and efforts that have been performative.
Absolutely. And define performative for our audience.
Yeah. So performative is basically where on paper, something may look good, right? Like we need to have not 1, not 2, but say 10 employee resource groups.
Right. Yeah. We want everybody.
Employee resource groups are our opportunity to do 2 things. 1, retain and learn more about our employees that are in that affinity, African American, Asian, veteran, disabled bodied, et cetera, women. And so those employee resource groups, we can tap into them to either recruit folks like them or retain the folks that we have. And so when we look at performative, we say, Yeah, we're interested, but we're not really going to commit the resources,
Right.
the human resources, the financial resources. And so it will only remain on paper.
Right.
Yeah, there's some very small steps toward improvement, but it's not sustainable.
Right.
It is a performance.
Absolutely. That's what you want to hold on to. The key word in that is it's a performance. It's not really aimed to bring about real change. It's do.
Yeah.
I want to make
Yeah.
it look like we're doing something while we're not doing something. We want to welcome our community. You all are joining us. You're in the house. Brooke, we want to thank you for being here with us. Stanley Wells, my brother. Jamaica Garrison, thank you all for joining us. Today, the topic that Tommy and I want to deal with is really looking at DEI and looking at the pros and cons of strengthening the brand, trying to double down or triple down on DEI, or pivoting to something new. And so a lot of people are considering these things right now. And so Tommy Lewis and Eric Ellis want to help you in your thinking, because we're going to say to you, I think in summary, I would say to you that you got to do what you think is best for you. Some of you are going to maintain a commitment to a DEI, and you may sort of quiet it up externally. Some of you are going to pivot to some new language. And so Tommy and I want to give you some help as you're thinking about sort of the pros and cons of maintaining DEI as your brand. So let's talk about maintaining DEI as the brand, Tommy.
And before we do, Eric, again, we mentioned our community. We want to invite our community to join us in this conversation. And so there's a way for you to join us by your voice. There's a way to join us if you want to share your voice and your name, image, and likeness. We can show your video. We want you to do that. And also, we always want to invite you to hit that bell for the alerts that we have our shows, and subscribe. We need your subscriptions. And so I just wanted to remind our community that, Eric, as we jump into the conversation.
Absolutely. So from the pro side, sort of the pro side of maintaining DEI is established recognition that there's established recognition of the brand. And so you want to hold on to that value. Institutional investment that has been made in DEI. You want, what happens if we just sort of chuck it all? You know, what happens to the institutional investment that we've made in this work over the last several decades? And then commitment to values, and then accountability and measurement. Those are some of the pros. Tommy, any reaction to those?
Yeah, no real reaction. Just interested in having the dialogue around this, and again, inviting the community as well. That was spot on.
Right. Community, we certainly want you to weigh in. We're going to get to the rebranding, option. But right now, what do you see as pros to maintaining our commitment to DEI? Tommy, I know I'm doing all of these things. So I'm maintaining some commitment. I'm educating people around what real DEI is, and I'm pivoting in some spaces and recommending to some clients that they pivot. I would say to you that there's some people that feel like pivoting is like, oh, you gave up, you threw in the towel. But we've been pivoting forever. So being agile in this space is what Tommy and I have had to do for the last 3 decades. For many that remember, it goes back to civil rights training, affirmative action training, sensitivity training, race and gender, then diversity. Come on now. We've had to do that throughout the time that as soon as somebody felt as though it wasn't inclusive of them and the dominant culture, then we had to make a pivot. So I think the notion of, we're going to get to that side, but valuing DEI, I know I love it when I see organizations that really say we're not going anywhere. We believe in this because this is a part of our core values. Costco is one of those organizations that has done it.
So 2 things here again, Eric. I think you're right on with the pivot. I will also call it evolving. As you walk down that timeline of this work, again, civil rights work to affirmative action, to sensitivity training, to diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, accessibility.
Right.
Those were all efforts under kind of column headings, right, to capture and engage everyone. So
Right.
diversity landed on some people, and others thought that it wasn't speaking
Hey,
about
that's
them,
speaking
it
to
was
me.
speaking about those other folks. And so inclusion was now that we are inviting folks to the party, now we're dancing with them. We're working together. And although we're dancing and working together, some folks are in the party dancing, but still feeling left out, i.e., not having that sense of belonging. We are evolving, even doing the work. Ideally, the work that we do and other folks who work with people-centered organizations, Eric, we were trying to work ourselves out of jobs.
Right.
That was the goal.
Right.
And that was the goal, because we said if we get to a place that we do not have any discrimination, any prejudice, any bias, any favoritism, right, or preferences, we
Right.
have arrived. We have been forced now to say, oh, we're going to victimize and villainize, if you will, DEI. Here's the other thing, Eric. Wait for it. It'll come back.
Yeah.
It'll
Yeah.
come back.
People will rise up. The
Yep.
people will rise up under new language, in many cases, under new branding. The right question says, someone told me our work is finding glue, not dissolving what we see. I like that.
I like that too.
Finding glue, ways that we can work together. That is what I have been committed to from after the start of our work. I remember when we started in this space, and like I said, my father, his firm was credited by many for coining the term diversity. And so I've watched all of these sort of, cycles and periods that we've gone through. And I remember the time when people of color and other marginalized people were glad to be working on their thing. And they didn't want everybody else to get in on their thing. They were like, hey, you've had your day in the sun. This is our day. And, it's our time. And we don't care if you get left out. And I just don't think that really works. And I know that when you're in pain, you get to a place where you may not want us to talk about other people's pain. We've seen that recently with many in the Jewish community that have been victimized by anti-Semitism and a rise in anti-Semitism. I think that's a huge problem in our community and our country. But you have to just make sure that you don't find yourself in a place where your hurt sort of leads you to say, it's my turn. And let's just take a pause from focusing on everybody else's pain and sort of zero in on mine, because it's significant to me.
Eric, last evening here on my vacation, where I am, I'm probably the only person of color. There may be 3 or 4 others.
Mhm.
I haven't seen them, but I'm certain they're here. And over the evening dinner and after dinner, I think I had one of the most impactful conversations around this topic.
Okay.
Yes, sir. This was last night. In fact, there were 2 Canadians who made it over to our conversation, and they jumped right in, and we laughed and we critiqued and we pushed back, and we had or heard solutions. Man, we went from Trump to DEI to disabled persons to the protected classes, right? All the way to the point of white men being subjugated to discrimination because they too would be charged or held accountable for their merit. So if you're hired in the next couple of years, folks are going to be leaning in saying, whoa, you're X amount of years old, you have this many years of experience, and you've been hired as the executive vice president on what merit, right? And folks are going to have to answer to this. This was last night.
Right.
That conversation was about 3 hours long, give or take. And so, as you brought up One of the comments around, you know, the glue, I thought that was a phenomenal comment. I'm curious for your thoughts, Eric, as well as the community specifically. What what is the glue? What are some of those solutions that can move us to the next level?
Yeah. So what's interesting is that timing sometimes is everything. And there are some people that are not looking for glue right now. I love what I think Brooke has said here. These are the times for us to come together. Not sure people are there. I think that many are in shock. I mean, what we're looking at right now is a sort of shock into immobility, that people
Yeah.
are immobile. They're literally trying to just get their sea legs under them. They're trying to see what changes are happening today. They don't know what that is or what it means to me. There are a lot of people that their livelihoods are being affected. And when they're in the midst of their livelihoods, if they're government workers, those jobs being affected, then I think, though, that the glue has to be a commitment to humanity. And the glue has to be a value system that says that I'm going to look beyond myself. I'm going to look beyond my own frustrations. I'm going to look beyond my own excitement. And I'm going to take inventory on what's happening to the rest of the world around me. And I'm going to make a commitment that I'm not going to let anybody easily manipulate me into despising, disconnecting from somebody that's different than me, that might not see the world the exact same way that I do. I just feel that that's a part of my responsibility. It's hard to hold two things in your mind at the same time, though, Tommy. Resist unfairness and partner with people who may not care about that unfairness. Resist unfairness, but also love, care for, and partner with people that may not care about that specific example of unfairness. I think that's part of the challenge that we struggle with.
So staying right there, I know we're getting through these pros and cons. What are your thoughts, Eric, about companies who have not only pulled back from DEI and their initiatives, uh, but they've actually gone to their own core values and value statements and taking that away, right? In other words, at one time, respect was a core value or diversity, and now they've stripped it away as if all of that was performative from the start. What are your thoughts about
Wow.
that?
So, Tommy, I'll tell you, one of the things that I've had to do is I've had to shore up my own plumbing and my own infrastructure so that I don't just get overwhelmed by disappointment and discouragement and hopelessness. I got to shore up my own structural foundation. And so I can't afford to zero in on all of those as a loss. Because if I did that, I tell people that in our lives, sometimes we have Goliaths in our lives. And one of the problems that I've seen in people is that they spend all their time staring into the eyeballs of each Goliath. Oh my God, you're huge. You're scary. Oh my God, I couldn't beat you. And we're literally spending all of our time looking into the eyes of Goliath and basically telling them how much fear I have for you. When I'm looking into the eyes of Goliath, I'm missing my future. I'm missing my purpose. I'm missing my own acknowledgement of my own strength. I'm missing taking inventory of what I have to survive.
Yeah.
So if I'm looking at Goliath, then I'm not taking inventory of what I have. So right now, I'm giving organizations a pass in some ways for trying to recalibrate where they need to be. Got it. And what I believe is that if you are stripping your values, there is a cost to that. So if you're literally just stripping your values, then there's a cost to that. If you're just trying not to get run over, I get it. That's going to show up in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. Thank you for unpacking that, Eric, because the question was coming from my own curiosity, and then also coming from the point number 3, as we are outlining ways to maintain DEI, right, or the use of DEI, is commitment to values. Maintaining DEI signals and refusal to yield to political and cultural pressures that seek to delegitimize efforts for fairness and equity. Fairness and equity. And going to Ken Wilson, good morning, Ken. Again, Ken says, affirmative action and DEI was created to ensure fair treatment for all, given our nation's history of colonization, genocide, enslavement, segregation, oppression, mass imprisonment, etc., etc., etc. Last one is that these anti-Black and anti-brown narratives were created to make white people feel like, etc. I think comfortable. And what I am learning through my connection with folks, that discomfort or any discomfort, it's not specific to one culture, race, creed, or religion. That now, with some of the things that are happening in this country, executive orders and things of that nature, that folks who may have thought that DEI was over there now are feeling the discomfort. It is impacting the impoverished. It is impacting nonprofit organizations that provide social services to the society, right? It is impacting our global service to the world, right? Our aid, which is more than tanks and military and soldiers, but simply being humane and offering up a part of our pie, because our plate is full. We are America, and other countries know this. However, internally, we're saying we don't need to share. Time out. Hold on. Be careful for greed, envy, and all of that. It will eat us up. But what we're saying is, okay, let's be committed to our value. Who is America? That's
right.
what we're asking.
Right. Let me go back. Ken Wilson, why are you awake this morning? Stirring up trouble already. So I'm going to go back, because the line that you passed over of Ken Wilson's is, for me, one of the most powerful in it. But I'm going to start by pushing back. So I'm going to push back in this way. These anti-Black and anti-brown narratives were created to make white people feel da-da-da. Okay?
Yeah.
What I would say, cautionary line, be careful as we say make white people, because as white people hear that, my experience is that some feel like we're categorizing them all in the same pot. I would say to you that the strategy is that, but that not every white person is bought into that. So we have to make sure that we understand that the strategy is, it's kind of like the strategy that was utilized back post-slavery, whites that were coming here that were indentured servants and things like that. Poor whites were beginning to look at the upper class and say, hey, the big bosses, they're taking everything from us. And so there was a strategy to say, no, but you're better than the Blacks, so that if you could put the poor whites and Blacks against each other, then you could run the whole thing. So that's the challenge that I have, is that not everybody white. And if we sometimes look like we put them all in the same boat, then we're fighting a whole race of people when they're actually divided. Let me go to then the question, the point that Ken makes here that I think is huge. In one of the biggest gaslighting initiatives in the history of the U.S. Politics, the definition has been altered. The definition of DEI has been altered, and a new definition: you're not qualified and you've been given something you didn't earn, and it has to stop.
Yeah.
That is Ken, that sums up the Heritage Foundation's strategy, in my view, and their 2025 plan was to do that because it is so easily moved forward because it lines up with so much of what many people believe. Now, I will say to you that the research shows that the group that feels like they're discriminated the most in this country are white people. I don't believe that's true, but that's how many feel. And so I think when this strategy, this gaslighting strategy, was put in place, it was to say that that people have something's been taken away from people, and somehow that that there's the message is you're not qualified and you've been giving something that you did not earn. And DEI, they're not going after everything in DEI. Actually, the biggest culprit that people really unconsciously are saying exist in DEI are Black and brown people. And so the president threw it out during the crash, literally in the midst of the crash, and all these lives that have been lost, maybe 67 lives. He said that DEI is responsible for that, and that really gets let go. And so the belief is that the opposite of DEI is meritocracy. And how can the president say that? That really what he wants to do, the reason why he's going after DEI is because it pandered to unqualified people who've been given something that they didn't deserve. And we need to go back to merit-based opportunities. That's what he says in his executive order. How can you say that with all of these incompetent cabinet members in tow? Looking at the one that's been given the most light is Hexit, who is now a Secretary of Defense, who has never managed over 100 people. And now you've got hundreds of thousands of soldiers, who hasn't managed a budget larger than $10 million, and he squandered that and blew that. Now you've got almost $1 trillion budget that you're somehow supposed to manage, and you've never done that before. So you are carrying people in tow who are unqualified, but nobody's actually given that the same oxygen that they're given to the stereotype and the mythology and the gaslighting about what DEI did.
Yeah, I think it's very simple to me, Eric, and what you just unpacked and what Ken was sharing. Again, I think it's very simple. With regards to meritocracy and the government, it doesn't, the merit that the folks that I'm bringing in is not their own merit, it's my approval of them. It's real simple to me. See, when you have ego and pride and you are othering other people, you don't see yourself in the same way or through the same lens. So we can take race, for example, and we talk about the white man or the Black man or the brown man or peoples, if you will. If you don't see yourself as a race, race is other. If you don't see yourself as a gender, you're the dominant gender, then gender identity is regarding your approval of other. Is
Right.
that there's one gender, male, and another gender, female. That's it. I see it that way. So that's the way it is. I don't question my own gender identity. I don't question my own class or my social economic status. I don't, because it don't matter. You have to remember there was a long history in this culture that certain people of color were not considered human beings.
Right.
And they were considered chattel, property, or 1/8 of a person. And there were laws, policies, rules governing the way we as human beings, or the lack thereof, interacted with one another.
Right.
That was happening for many years.
Right.
And then we move into the 40s and 50s, and that was that same oppressed demographic that said, I'm sick and tired of that.
Right.
And started to fight against it and called it civil rights. It wasn't just Black folks. So let me be clear. The civil rights movement was not only for Black folks.
Right.
right? Women through suffrage in the 20s and 30s, right? Hispanic, et cetera, et cetera. And so I want to say with that, Eric, that I would agree with Ken Wilson,
Mm-hmm.
where making the comment of white people, I don't think it is intentionally clumping all white folks together.
Right.
And the reason why I say that is because we know historically there's been some comments about people of color or African Americans in particular, and then they engage with us, and people say, "Well, you're not like them." I'm, People have engaged with me as an African
Yep.
American
Yep.
and said to myself that I am not like them. The them are other African Americans. And I take offense to that.
Right.
So I'm not like my family. Those may be the them, but it's the shock and awe of the power of words with relationships to those sensitive topics: race, sex or identity, religion, and politics.
Right. Right.
So this this chaos that we're experiencing is from those who have some power, influence, and don't have any accountability or responsibility to say whatever they want to say, right? That's what's happening. People are saying at that level whatever they want to say, and it's not referring to them. And
Right.
those who are subjugated to it or victimized are those who are less powerful or have no power at all.
Yeah. And I guess what my optimistic brain and heart would hope for, Ken Wilson, is that people aren't just foolishly duped by these strategies that are leveling up ethnocentrism.
Yeah.
My view of the world, my culture is the better way. Right now, it looks like it is working. And Ken says here, this is hilarious. He says the Joint Chiefs of Staff are reporting to this guy. So I want you to see Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense, as a drunken stupor, just seen as a drunk guy. Got a drinking problem. He's stumbling down the aisle as the Secretary of Defense. He's pinching women on the way. He doesn't know anything about military strategy at the highest level. And what do you think our enemies think about him? See, DEI was put in place to ensure that meritocracy led the day and not choosing people that were your friends or people that thought like you or people that looked like you, people that were unqualified, that were being put in positions because of they were similar to me. That's what DEI was here to fight. That's the gaslighting part. Now you want to say that DEI is responsible for the crash. Nothing, no facts, nothing. Just throw it out there because people will fall into that trap because it's easy to look at me and Tommy and others and say that somehow it's commonly understood that you're unqualified. And then we have all these people that we're talking about that will run the FBI, that will run the Defense Department. We have no experience, no qualifications at all. I looked at Chat GPT and asked it, what kind of background would you need to be the Secretary of Defense? The Chat knows that Hegseth ain't qualified at all. And so we are living in a world where people within the dominant culture can be assumed to be qualified, and we never, ever question that. And I think that should be a problem. For me, that's the bigger headline. It's bigger than party. It's bigger than race. It's this notion of somebody being completely unqualified to do the job, and people aren't actually looking at that, caring about it at all. And I believe if you don't care about meritocracy, then let's say that. You know.
Yeah.
Let's go back to, I want to make sure that we're talking about what the things that people are writing to us, Tommy. Stanley Wells has said, what can those that are not practitioners in DEI, entrepreneurs, the public, do to change the performative nature of the majority? Oh, Why are y'all awake? Huh? Come on, Stanley, Ken, Brooke. Y'all awake and y'all diving into real issues, the performative nature of the majority of supplier diversity programs at major corporations.
So I think, and I'll take a light stab at this.
Right.
I think that's a
And I'll
loaded
take a big one.
question. It's a great question, Stanley. And I've actually asked that myself as I've been paying attention to the landscape, and a lot of leaders or directors of supplier diversity programs have either been guillotined, right? They've been cut off, or they are running scared, right? Running scared. And you can run scared in place. Right? You can be sitting in your office making your $200,000 a year in certain markets, and you have this pipeline of diverse suppliers that you've built relationships with, not just you, the executive, but also the company, and trying to get them in the system. And then literally overnight, let's not do it. So one thing I think that one can do is, from a business perspective, I think we still have to land on the true economic business case. So what that may look like is where competition of similar services and products that are qualified, experienced, certified, all that good stuff. When we have more competitors, we increase the opportunity for those competitors to strengthen their products and services, as well as at times decrease the price for those products and services. So we're not looking for the cheapest rate, right? We're looking for high value, at the same time sustained relationships.
Right.
So and oftentimes, even in the heyday of supplier diversity, when you had a supplier that was a woman owned company or minority owned company or disadvantaged business enterprise, or DBE, those companies oftentimes could make one mistake and they're out of the supply chain.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Where other companies could make the mistake once, twice, three times, they can double down on the mistake. Right. And they've been given the olive branch of redemption.
Right.
And so the practitioner has to understand that there's the process, the supply chain, which is the process, and then there's still the bias in the people. The African proverb is, a person convinced against their will is of the same opinion still. You have people in the corporations that have been convinced against their will that supplier diversity brought value. They were of the opinion that it doesn't. Right. So now folks are saying, I told you so.
Right.
Yeah, we have to say, here's the business case of why it happens, such that it is not performative. It is actually business essential.
Right. And so Stanley, Tommy, thank you for that perspective. I think that's helpful in this conversation. And Stanley, what I would say to you, the short answer is not much. What can people who are not practitioners in DEI, or people that I don't know if the question is much different for people that are not practitioners and people that are practitioners, what can they do to change the performative nature? I think right now, supplier diversity it feels like it's biting the dust. But for me, it kind of bit the dust when it started. I mean, I'm sorry. I got Toyota as a client, and then they made me become a minority supplier. So I got the contract, then I was asked to become a minority supplier. I have been a member of the National Minority Supplier Development Council. I've gone to their conferences over 25 years. Had some of the nicest parties, made a lot of friends, had a good time, networked with a bunch of people, walked around the trade show until I got bunions on my feet. And out of those 25 to 30 years of attending those events, there are probably 2 opportunities that I got as a result of attending those events and being a minority supplier. So the question I would, so I think what we need to do is push back on organizations. I think there will be protests and the public holding organizations accountable for doing things that are performative. You're performing, but you're not doing anything meaningful. But I would say the real question on the table is this, and I would ask those in the dominant culture, which privilege would you prefer? Would you prefer a legacy bias-based privilege where you got something because of your legacy, your parents went to Harvard, now you can go? Or do you want this quote unquote unearned DEI privilege? Which one do you want?
Yeah.
Which one do you really want? Just think about that. Go in the corner, put your thinking cap on, and say, which privilege do I want? Do I want the legacy, bias-based privilege that's unsaid, unspoken? I get it. It's quiet. Or do I want that DEI privilege where they have to label me? This supplier, we chose them because of diversity.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want that? You really want that privilege?
Right.
And oftentimes, people that ran diversity organizations, they were diverse suppliers. They were the most qualified. But as soon as they got labeled, now people feel like the only reason they got something. And so I saw people saying, I wish I was. I tell you, I wish I was a minority, women-owned, disabled business. If I was all those things, I could get any job in the country. I'm saying you do not. You wouldn't want to be all of that.
Nope.
Because all of that means you're going to get a bunch of shut doors in you. If you got intersectionality, oh my goodness. The reality is that the mythology around what people have gotten under the DEI brand is foolishness, gaslighting. It's irresponsible. And so that's a problem.
Eric, I want to share this story very quickly for our audience, and I've never shared this with you, Eric. I'm sharing it live, and it's about Eric Ellis and Toyota and Tommy Lewis and Make It Plain Consulting. 20 years ago, give or take, when I was, Make It Plain had a number of different lines of business, and we are a human resources management company. That's what Make It Plain is. And so we had the opportunity to submit a proposal to Toyota. And we were submitting a proposal through a direct ask. Mm-hmm. And the direct ask was, tell me what Make It Plain does and send us some information, i.e. a proposal, we'll consider it. And so I send the proposal talking about our HR management solutions. Mm-hmm. We also had some workforce development work, some training, and some coaching, right? And those were our three lines of business at the time. We were then patched in to Toyota's supplier diversity, DEI. There were some
right.
These folks, I know, Eric knows, I'm not going to mention their name. They have since moved on from Toyota some 20 years ago or 10 years ago, right? And so I was going in with the mindset of, here's Make It Plain Consulting.
Yeah, take me through the main door.
Yep, the main door. And the people who actually looked like me and Eric,
right,
had advised me to connect with Eric Ellis of Integrity Development. I shared with those people, thank you, I'm familiar with Eric and I'm familiar with the company, but I'm actually looking at the HR side. To my understanding, he's doing a lot of work in the people side, you're right, with the training, DEI.
Right.
And I told him, I think he's carved out a great space and he's good there. I was advised, well, if you want to get in the diversity space, I connect with Eric Ellis. Again, I pushed back two times.
Which you should have.
Why are you bottlenecking me into DEI when I told you we're an HR company? That's one. Two, I don't know if if you're directing me to Eric Ellis because you're looking at my company as a person, me,
right,
because I don't know if you would tell your other major suppliers to go to your other major suppliers who are in turn their competitors, right? I'm going to direct you to go to your competitor and partner with them because they have the contract right now, although we're asking you to do something that's not what they're doing.
right.
It was confusing to me. The good news is I knew and I respected Eric Ellis of integrity, right? And I knew that we did do some diversity, equity, inclusion work. And then I also knew that the people, the human beings in those particular roles were doing their job,
Yeah,
which is different than doing your life.
right,
So what Eric Ellis does at Integrity, it's not what he does, it's who he is, right? So anytime you see Eric engaging on diversity conversations or out in the community, some folks may pass judgment like, oh, you're doing the integrity development piece or you're doing the DEI spin. Nope, nope. Eric is doing the Eric Ellis, I'm a human being and others are human beings spin. That's what he's doing.
right,
That's what I was doing.
right,
Treat me as a business, treat
right,
everything as a business. And I also respect Eric and others as human beings.
right,
But to not be as performative, there has to be a change in mindset of how we engage with vendors. People run businesses, but business is business. The
right,
attack on DEI has been an attack on not just people of color, disadvantaged, all that. It's been an attack on an industry.
right, right.
On an industry.
Yeah, Tommy, we got Brooke wants to get on. So we finally have somebody that has come in that wants to get on. So we want to bring Brooke on the stage. Hey, Brooke, how you doing?
Hey there. Good morning, guys. This has been a fantastic conversation. I appreciate it. And you all, as I was looking for the link, Lydia said, jump on and ask because I couldn't get my question in. You all already started talking about exactly what my question was. So I have a perspective and that I get a lot of pushback on, and you all know me well enough that this is a safe space. We'll just ignore that this is public.
Right.
Trusting you all in this moment.
That's right.
I have a theory, and then you all were just now touching in on it, that I do understand why affirmative action. I do understand during the time it all took place. It had to happen. Stuff had to be squashed, right? Okay.
Right.
In today's world, I also can see the beauty of saying, hey, you get to have your own thought because now you're not hiding. Now you're up there. If you're going to own a restaurant and you have these feelings and you don't want to serve somebody, I want to know about that so I can choose to not go into your restaurant.
Right.
I don't want to be giving you money when you having these feelings that I didn't even know you had.
Right.
So when I say this in places, I so far 90% I get a lot of pushback. And I get a lot of, you don't understand. And I may not. So that's why I'm here. And also, but that's where I see this can go, this can go. And I also know that when you do things like that also, I can see how it can get out of control too. I do see that. I'm not only seeing one time. Right. But I'm thinking, like, when I think about your all's work, and then I think about, oh my gosh, wow, how proud now a company can be, not just a check mark, but how proud they can be when they say, no, this is what we stand for. Right.
Here's the thing, Brooke, I love that question. I love and you are so sweetly honest. And I hear you saying that, and meanwhile, you're saying one of the things you're saying is that, hey, if people are just acting a fool now, if they can they've been unleashed to just be who they are. You're saying that has some value because now I can know whether I'm going to do business with you or not. In the performative days where they were like, we like DEI and we're open to you, but we're not, you're saying that's a problem because nobody really knows where they stand. But you're also then asking the question, is it better off for Tommy and I to be in a world where there is no special program for a DEI? I go through the front door, I get the business, and when I do, everybody has to recognize I got the business because I'm good. That would be great if that was the world that we lived in. Unfortunately, that's not. But there's parts of this that still work. So, I don't care. I didn't care. I didn't want to become a minority business. I was just a business. But unfortunately, when I was quietly being left out consistently because I wasn't a man, if I'm a woman-owned business, or because I'm differently abled, because I'm not able-bodied, when I'm consistently being left out, left behind, then I would take any help that came along. It's like I've been losing all the rounds this way. So when DEI came along and now you had to consider me, I was like, at least you got to consider me now, because I wasn't getting any consideration. And that's what we're going back to. Because if you see, if nobody has to be concerned about fairness across the board, they just choose people that look like them, act like them, think like them. And liberals would do the same thing. This is not something that has ownership in one community or another. People's nature is almost to keep bringing in people that think like me, look like me, talk like me, act like me. And we need a world that operates differently than that.
Is it possible that that's like up until now? You all have been the pioneers, right? You all have seen this. Like, let's take a new folks to the scene that want to start their DEI business, that have not been through the trenches that you all have been through. You're tired, you're exhausted, you're depleted. You may not literally be, but I could see how that can play into your last 30 plus years of this, right? Having to lay down the trenches. And now it feels like it's going backwards. What if that was up until today? Because we are different. There are people who aren't. There are people who are the same. And if we keep bringing in that past, is it possible that, and I don't even believe it's like more people. It could be 50-50 right now, right? But if we could just go to 51, is there a chance that today we are different? Is there a chance that we could, we are different, meaning that there is enough people who are able to not pick just based upon they look like me. Just enough to where it's not going all the way back. It's really like cleaning out closets. But we have a lot of good momentum.
Here's what I would say as a short answer. If I were to ask the Jewish community, where do you see us being today? Because after the Holocaust, you certainly would have believed that everybody would say that that's the worst way to go. You cannot be hating people based upon their faith. But I would say to you that we are seeing a huge, tremendous increase in anti-Semitism today. So if it were true that today were the better day and now we can move forward, that would be beautiful. But I would think that that's unfortunately, it would be a utopia that unfortunately oftentimes doesn't exist in the real world, because the things that get attention are the negative. So we are overrun with negative stereotypes. Politicians and the media know that the best way to hold our attention is through negativity. So what we're hearing about each other on a regular basis is negativity. And so it has us see each other in these narrow ways. And then people don't have enough time to get to know each other. Because if people got to know each other and they were able to build relationships, I have a lot of confidence in that. But we're living in a world where people don't have a lot of time, and they're depending on social media, and they're dependent on the media itself to tell us about others, and those pictures that are being painted are negative.
So I just heard that, we could do that if everybody turned it off.
Yes. If they turned off the crap and they really spent time with each other. So here's what I'm doing, Brooke. I'm choosing not to just judge people by their narrow view of me. I'm choosing to love them, to care about them, to bond with them, so that we might develop a friendship that enables us to then care about each other.
Mm-hmm.
And without knowing each other, then we can't find the empathy that's necessary to care about the things that affect us.
So I would agree as well, Brooke. What I am doing is, again, I mentioned this to Eric. I'm not allowing people or things to live rent free in my head. So I turn it off. There are certain conversations that I'm sick and tired of having because it takes up too much time in my head and it's unproductive for me.
Yeah.
Right. So it will draw me into that negative spiraling kind of pigeonhole discussion where I need to build relationship with the person right in front of me, right, with Brooke, instead of really thinking about some things that I have no control of and that ultimately have no interest in. I don't care what it is. If it could be some type of global affair, right, and I do have interest in that, or it can be my next door neighbor, right? For real. If my next door neighbor decides not to cut their grass every week, right, where I cut my grass every week, I'm not going to be in my house every day talking about my neighbor's not cutting their grass. It's my neighbor's this, my neighbor's that. And my neighbor is on vacation, not even thinking about me, but they're in my head. So when we are doing this work, we have folks, like you said, to move to that 51st% that tick up. There are a lot of people who are exhausted. They are as well as energized. But then we may have a small percentage of people who are on the fence. And to your point, let it be known where you stand. Let it be known. Not smile in our face, shake our hand, give us our hugs and our kisses on both cheeks, and then go in their own comfort circles and say, I don't like Brooke, or I don't like Eric or Tommy in diversity conversations, and let's create policies to express my disdain of them. We have those folks. We are looking at folks that, can I trust you? At this point, we need courage.
Right. Let me go one step further, Brooke, and do it this way. Let's completely walk away from race. Let's put it in the language of gender.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I'm not offended at all when we're talking about sometimes special programs that are needed to help women in leadership in corporate America, because I see the real bias that exists against women. If I look at the military, they were one of my clients. I had men in focus groups that would tell me about the sexism that was existing in their area. And so I know that you like Tommy and myself, Brooke, you're a street fighter. I mean, you ready to let's go. You know, that's who you are. Let's go. If it's straight up, I'm going to compete. And if I lose, I lose. If I win, I win. That's who you are. That's just not the world that we live in. And so the reality is there is still way too much sexism. I'm reminded of a couple of years ago where the man was working for this auto manufacturer. They were looking for new talent. He invited his wife to be a part of this. She joined that company, and then she was experiencing sexism right away and sexual harassment right away. She never even told her husband. She's just in there trying to navigate it. And finally, when she told her husband said, well, you got to tell your bosses. She didn't want to do that. She told her bosses. They told her to get over it, basically. And at the end of the day, they moved her and knocked the guy that was sexually harassing her. And I've heard that story over and over and over again, Brooke. And so for me as a man, I'm mature enough and I care deeply enough. I'm not offended by us developing systems, programs to ensure that women don't have to deal with that they should just be able to be judged by the quality of their skills and not by their gender. And that's the world that we still live in. I wish it wasn't. I've seen that with people that are neurodivergent, that are on the autism spectrum, that people don't have patience with them. And I just think that, unfortunately, because we are in these silos, and ethnocentrism says that I tend to look at myself and value myself better than others. It's almost like arguments between men and women, between significant others. When my wife and I are arguing, my brain never says to me, hey, she's absolutely right. My brain keeps saying to me, I'm right and she's wrong. That's how the world works, is that too often people's brain says that they're right and they're not willing to consider the other person's point of view. Here's the other thing you're saying that I'm hearing, Brooke. You're saying, isn't there a cautionary tale that we have to make sure that we're not so heightened in terms of our focus of being left behind and discriminated against, that we don't recognize our own need to grow and get better? And I think that's legitimate. You don't want to use these things as a crutch where you're never looking at what can you do, and that everybody's going to get disliked for something. So almost get over it. That's a part of what you're saying. Hey, everybody's going to get left behind for some reason.
Yeah, in a not a dismissive way, though. There's this.
Yeah, I know that. I'm factoring that in because I know who you are.
Right.
But in part, you're saying, come on, people, if they're kicking you, they're trying to dog you out, the last thing you want to do is lay down.
Right. I am. And I'm hearing you say there's also a lot of people that are going to be kicking, and it's going to multiply.
Yeah. And I want to have empathy for them, because right now, my mindset is, and this is what I said, when I have to build up my infrastructure to protect me. And so, but that infrastructure might sound like I don't have enough empathy for people, for example, in the federal government that are losing their jobs. I do, but I'm trying to help people build an infrastructure that says bad things are happening. I can't fold. In other words, I just can't cave in. I have to find the fight in me to keep going. I can't keep describing the situation to a place where I can't make it. And I think that's a part of what's in you, Brooke, is that you're saying, I feel bad for people, but don't lay down, and understand that there are a lot of people that are going to say it feels like you got something that you didn't earn.
Well, there's also this, I do have that fight in me, but I also have the open door where I can make an impact. So I'm like looking around and saying, this is brought to us, and this is who I am. And I do believe in humans as much as I might not should be, but I do believe in them. Right. And so I'm looking for the open door and how this could be a greater impact. Right.
And the open door for you is to be a bridge builder, which you've been for a long time. I think you care about diverse communities of color, and you have some great friendships in a lot of different communities. And all the good people that sometimes are on opposite sides. Like this group would never communicate with this group. They're all friends with me. And you see the good in them, and you see sometimes the craziness in them. And there's a part of you that's saying, like Rodney King said, why can't we all just get along?
Constantly.
Yeah. That's who Brooke is. Yeah. And Brooke, here's what I'm going to say. So that becomes your uniqueness. That becomes your gift to society. Here's what I'd say to you, Brooke. Don't try to be like everything else we're talking about. Brooke's got to be Brooke, and you've got a role that you're playing in this world. And I'm grateful for that. And from a faith standpoint, I remember when I first got into church, and I was looking around talking to God, like, God, look at all these hypocrites in here. And I feel like God said to me, well, Eric, maybe you don't know, but this is a hospital, number one. And number two, you're in it. And so, he said, like, you need to turn down the resolution in your eyes that sees the flaws in others so clearly. And you need to begin to recognize some of the flaws in you. As I began to do that, Brooke, not just in church, but in the workplace, as I begin to recognize the biases that exist in me and in my family and others in my community, it caused me to be less judgmental of the biases that I see in communities outside of myself. And so that's my perspective at the end of the day, as I'm trying to love on everybody, trying to make progress where we can, but giving people grace, the grace that we all will need, because there's a part of hurt that can sound defensive and blaming. of others as though none of those traits exist within us.
Mm-hmm.
I think bias is a human condition. But I thank you for jumping on with us today.
I know I held you all up, but thank you very much. I appreciate it. Because I'm always here to learn, and I have you in my head a lot. I still have some stories that I've heard from you that I ask myself: Is this the bone? Like, is this the dog? And the dog is it
our dog? Right.
There's so many times I question how I'm thinking based upon what I've learned from you. So I'm here to learn. I appreciate it, and I will look forward to listening next week.
Thank you, Brooke. Love you. I love you a lot.
Bye.
And so, community, I guess we've got to wrap this up. This has been an amazing conversation today. It's taken us to places that everybody might not agree, but I'll tell you that I love people. I'm grateful for the work that God has created me to do, and I'm continuing to try to grow and evolve in this critical moment so that I can be as helpful as possible. I don't want to just be a noisemaker out here. I don't want to just be fighting in vain, but I don't want to be laying down as well. I would say to you that there are multiple roles that are needed in this time and every time. And none of us has all of the approaches right. We have a lane that we're working out of. Try to be the most responsible, the best you that you can be in that lane. And Tommy's probably moved on. Lydia, do you have any final words? Why don't you come on camera, Lydia? I know we're over time.
I'm here. Oh my gosh, this is so amazing. A pleasure and an honor to be here. Yes, all I can say is that all the wisdom that you're sharing, and as the comments on the community, amazing community that we have. Yes, I love that analogy of the glue. Let's find the glue. These are the times to come together, to understand each other, to come like in a middle point. Just meet halfway. We can meet halfway, and we can transform our world, our environment, and everything starts within us, right?
Right. And I'll say to you, community, and thank you, Lydia, that the good people, in my view, they outweigh the evil people. And so we can't give light and oxygen only to the evil, hateful people. In Cincinnati yesterday, there were neo-Nazis that were putting up swastikas in the nation's #1 Black community in the country, Lincoln Heights. And so people feel emboldened to come to that community and put up their swastikas. But I'd say to you that we don't allow ourselves to define everybody by those narrow-minded people. And we don't allow anybody who's spewing out hate to think that hate somehow is more powerful than love. So that's why we're here. And so when you say the glue is what should be connecting all the good people of the world together. Good people can't find themselves fighting each other because of these narrow-minded idiots, no matter what level of position they hold in this country. So thank you, Lydia. I love you. Community, we love you. We want to tell you to keep having great diversity conversations and join us next week for another amazing installment in Diversity Conversations. Take care of each other. Bye now.